You're watching Phantom Astronaut's Night Terrors, where folklore takes shape in the shadows, and the line between legend and reality blurs. Tonight, we delve into the unsettling tale of the Kalikanzaros, mischievous and malevolent creatures from Greek folklore said to roam the earth during the 12 days of Christmas. Their laughter hides darker intentions, and their antics can turn from pranks to terror in the blink of an eye. If you enjoy diving into the eerie and unknown, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Check the links in the description for more ways to support us. Now let's explore the tale of the Kalikanzaros. It started, as these things often do, with a knock at the door. Theodoros Stavrakis had been dreading this season for weeks, the darkest days of winter, when the air was brittle and the sun barely warmed the stones of his tiny village in the mountains of Thessaly. The 12 days of Christmas were supposed to be a time of joy and celebration, but for Theo, they were something else entirely. The villagers whispered about the Kalikanzaros, small goblin-like creatures with wiry limbs, long claws, and laughter sharp enough to cut the skin. Some said they lived underground most of the year, sawing away at the world tree, trying to bring it crashing down. But during the 12 days, when the veil between worlds thinned, they emerged to wreak havoc on the living. Mischief, the old ones called it, but Theo had seen enough winters to know better. Mischief was what you called it when someone's livestock disappeared or their chimney collapsed. It wasn't mischief when people vanished. That year, the snow came early, covering the ground in a thick, heavy blanket that muffled every sound. The wind howled through the narrow streets of the village, rattling the shutters of Theo's small house. He was sitting by the fire, a cup of wine in his hand, trying to ignore the unease prickling at the back of his neck. The knock came again, louder this time. Theo set the cup down and stood, his knees creaking. He wasn't a young man anymore, but his shoulders were still broad, and his hands were strong from years of working the land. Still, as he approached the door, he felt a strange tightness in his chest, a quiet voice in the back of his mind, whispering, "Don't open it." "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady, despite the unease coiling in his gut. No answer, just the sound of the wind and the faint creak of the door as the knocking stopped. Theo frowned and unlatched the bolt. He opened the door a crack, peering out into the darkness. Nothing. Just the snow, glittering faintly in the moonlight, and the skeletal branches of the olive trees swaying in the wind. He was about to close the door when he heard it. A low chuckle, soft and sharp, like the scrape of metal on stone. "Who's there?" Theo demanded again, his voice sharper now. The laughter grew louder, coming from somewhere to his left. Theo squinted into the darkness, and his breath caught in his throat. Something was crouched there, just beyond the edge of the light, a shape too small to be a man, but too twisted to be a child. Its limbs were long and spindly, its back hunched, and its eyes gleamed like polished obsidian. It grinned at him, revealing a row of jagged teeth, and Theo's stomach twisted with a cold, sick dread. The Kalikanzaros spoke then, its voice high and mocking, a sing-song tone that sent shivers down Theo's spine. Theo, let us in. It's cold out here, and we're so hungry." Theo slammed the door and bolted it, his hands shaking. The laughter outside grew louder, more voices joining in, a cacophony of high-pitched giggles and guttural snarls. They scratched at the door, their claws scraping against the wood, and Theo backed away, his heart hammering in his chest. "Go away," he shouted, his voice cracking. "You're not welcome here." The scratching stopped. For a moment there was silence, so profound it made Theo's ears ring. Then, from the roof above, he heard the soft patter of footsteps. His stomach dropped. They were inside. Theo grabbed the poker from the hearth and turned, his eyes darting to the shadows that danced along the walls. The fire flickered, the light dimming as though something unseen was drawing the warmth from the room. And then he saw them, small wiry figures crawling down the walls, their claws clicking against the stone. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, and their laughter filled the room, sharp and cruel. "You shouldn't have opened the door," one of them hissed, its voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. Theo swung the poker, but the creature darted out of reach, its movements quick and jerky, like a spider scuttling across the floor. Another lunged at him, and he swung again, the metal connecting with a sickening crunch. The creature let out a shriek, more anger than pain, and the others backed away, hissing. "Leave!" Theo shouted, his voice trembling but defiant. "Leave my house!" The Kalikanzaros paused, their black eyes gleaming with something like amusement. One of them, larger than the rest, stepped forward, its jagged teeth bared in a grin. "We'll leave," it said, its voice low and mocking. "But not before we've had our fun." The next moments were a blur of chaos. The creatures tore through the house, overturning furniture, clawing at the walls, scattering embers from the hearth. Theo fought them off as best he could, his heart pounding, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, as dawn broke, and the first light of the sun crept through the window, the Kalikanzaros stopped. They turned to the door, their grins fading, and one by one, they slipped out into the snow, their laughter echoing in the still morning air. Theo collapsed by the hearth, the poker falling from his hands. The house was a wreck, the walls gouged with claw marks, the fire reduced to smoldering embers. But he was alive, and as he sat there, trembling in the light of the new day, he whispered a prayer of thanks. The 12 days of Christmas weren't over yet. But Theo knew one thing for certain. He would never open the door after dark again. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the legend of the Kalikanzaros. If tonight's episode of Phantom Astronauts Night Terrors left you looking over your shoulder, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Don't forget to check the links in the description for more ways to support us. This has been Phantom Astronauts Nocturnal Tales. I'll see you out there